They laughed at me in public. My success was more silent. This part of revenge is something no one tells you about. It doesn't always make itself known. Sometimes it comes quietly, clearly, and definitively, and those who laughed don't realize what's happening until it's happened. But I'm getting off topic. My name is Meyer Osai, and 2 years ago I was the youngest junior architect at Callaway Stern, one of Chicago's most prestigious firms. On paper, it sounds like a dream. In reality, it meant spending most of my days in a glass-walled office with 12 people who were convinced I didn't deserve to be there. I could tell when a senior associate would pause before giving me a red line, as if deciding whether to trust me with a pair of scissors. I used to see it in conference rooms, when I would give a structured suggestion and 3 people would talk over me, and then 2 minutes later the rest of them would catch on and someone, always someone else, would say the same thing out loud and get the nod. Imposter syndrome was like a second skin to me. I grew up in Evanston. My mother was a high school math teacher, and my mother was someone who made custom curtains for people who were richer than us. I got an architecture degree on scholarship and graduated second in my class. I won a regional student design award, which I never mentioned to Callaway Stern because I was terrified they would somehow find a way to use it against me. I worked with my head down. I worked through the night. I triple-checked everything. And then Derek Lane walked into my career and changed everything. Derek was a senior partner in his 60s, with silver hair past his ears, a man who wore confidence the way others wore perfume. He had built 3 of Chicago's most iconic skyscrapers. When Derek Lane spoke in a room, people would stop what they were doing. When he spoke on someone's behalf, the course of their life would change overnight. He started paying attention to me about 8 months later. I had submitted a memo on the aesthetics of load-bearing structures for a municipal project, which was just a simple internal document. The next morning, he stopped me in the hallway. "This thinking is unconventional," he said, tapping the folder in his palm. He looked at me the way teachers look at you when they really look at you, direct, evaluative, but not cruel. Over the next few months, he became my advocate within the firm in a way that I only fully understood. He would give me direct reviews with clients. He would give me credit by name in partner meetings. Meyer identified this, or it came from Maya's structural analysis. The skeptics didn't disappear entirely, but they quieted down. Some of them actually started to listen. I trusted him in the way you trust someone who tells you for the first time that you deserve a position you've always suspected. That's why, when the firm announced that they were entering the Voss International Design Competition, a global competition whose results can be career-defining, I went to Derek first. The idea I'd been developing in private for about a year, that I'd never shown anyone, that I'd been up until 2 in the morning sketching out angles that seemed almost impossible to believe. I took it to him. I remember sitting across from him in his corner office, the Chicago River visible through floor-to-ceiling glass behind him, the late October light fading and graying on his desk. I pushed the portfolio toward him. He slowly opened it. He turned the first page, then the second. He looked up. "Maya," he said, "this is amazing." I felt like I was breathing a sigh of relief for the first time in months. After that meeting, Derek asked me to formalize everything, clean drafts, structured calculations, a complete technical package. For the submission committee, he said, they'll want to see everything documented. I worked for 3 straight weekends, barely sleeping, eating whatever I could get out of the microwave. I sent him the files in the middle of the night at 5 in the morning. He replied to most of them with short confirmation messages. "Got it. Okay. Keep going." Then, in mid-November, something changed. From that day on, he stopped answering. When I passed him in the hallway, he would nod, just as the elevator attendant was told, polite, unconcerned. Once I saw him laughing about something in the bullpen with one of the senior associates, Marcus Chen, and he walked right away when he saw me. He didn't beckon me. I told myself he was busy, deadline pressure. It happens. I emailed him twice asking if there was anything else he needed from me before the submission deadline. In the first reply, he wrote a single sentence, "I've got it all covered." In the second, he didn't respond at all. The public unveiling was held in the atrium of our building and attended by partners, associates, a handful of media representatives, and a few members of the Voss committee who were in town. They had printed out the finalists' concept boards in large format, mounted on foam core, and lined them up along the east wall under track lighting. I went inside, poured myself a coffee from a nearby table, and told myself to breathe. I was proud of what I had created. No matter what happened next in the competition, I knew what was written on those boards. I could see it from about 15 feet away. Derek Lane, senior partner, Carver and Fitch. My name wasn't there. Not on the original board. Not on the technical sheets framed next to it. I slowly approached, wondering if I was misreading something, just as a text message is reread because it can never be read right the first time. My handwriting was there. My original handwriting in the marginal notes, the shorthand I used to jot down important notes, and his name was there, but mine was nowhere to be found. I turned and saw Derek standing at the window across the room, shaking hands with someone. "Derek," my voice sounded as steady as it did. "There's been a problem with the board's credit." He looked at me the way someone looks at someone who has mispronounced a word in a meeting, patient, slightly hurt. "Maya, this is not the time for this. I don't have a name on my own work." An expression played on his face, then disappeared before I could understand it. The idea has evolved significantly through the partnership process. The credit for the work submitted to the competition reflects the name of the partner who submitted it. He said it as if he were reciting a motto, as if it were annoying, as if I should have known this already. People around us were starting to notice. I could feel it, the little shifts in their movements, the slight shrugs of their shoulders, the lowering of their voices as they sensed a situation was brewing. Priya Anand from the third-floor team was standing so close that she could hear everything. She looked at the board, then at me, then at Derek. Then she pursed her lips and looked away. Someone laughed, not cruelly, just that uncomfortable social laugh that people laugh when they don't know what else to do. And then someone else joined in, and the sound of that laughter spread through the atrium like a physical object. Derek went back to his discussion. In a room full of colleagues, I stood completely devastated in front of my own work, and I didn't move. I didn't cry. I just stood there, remembering exactly what that felt like. I went home and didn't turn on any lights. I sat in my coat in the kitchen, probably for 2 hours. I know this because the sky outside was turning from gray to black, and I just stared at it without moving. My portfolio box was leaning against the wall next to the door where I had dropped it. I couldn't look at it. I took the next 3 days off, claiming illness. It was the first time in 2 years. On the second day, I drafted my resignation letter. I typed it, reread it, and reread it. It came out pretty good, professional, clean, and without a hint of bitterness. I saved it to my desktop and stared at the icon for a long time. The truth is, I've wanted this since I was 16, when I used to draw floor plans in my sketchbook in study hall because I couldn't stop. Quitting felt like cutting off a part of my body, but staying was like accepting the way Derek had fixed me, that I was someone whose ideas were only there to be borrowed. I didn't send that. On the 4th day, I got a text message from an unknown number. Just 5 words, "Check your email, have faith." The email had no name attached. A temporary address clearly intended to be thrown away. Inside was a sentence, "Talk to Cam Reyes. He takes pictures of everything." Nothing more. Cam Reyes was a first-year junior on the sustainability team. I had spoken to him maybe 4 times. When I found him in the break room the next morning and asked if we could talk privately, he looked at me for a moment as if he were deciding something. Then he nodded and said, "Yeah, I was hoping someone would ask." He had been at the concept presentation 6 months earlier. That internal presentation was in the small room where just I and 2 of my colleagues were discussing the initial spatial logic, before Derek touched anything. Cam took pictures of everything, he told me. Not for any particular reason, just out of habit. He showed me his laptop, right there on that little table, 43 images. My drafts spread across the table, my handwriting on the annotations. The date stamped on each image, buried deep in the metadata of the file, is absolutely clear and irrefutable. I don't know if this will do any good, he said. I'll show you, I said. More than you think. I didn't tell him what I was going to do next. Partly because I didn't want to involve him anymore, and partly because I hadn't quite made up my mind yet. But I copied the files to a drive, thanked him silently, and then went back to my desk, opened my laptop, and sat with my hands in my lap for a while. The announcement of the Meridian Prize had come 2 weeks earlier. A European competition, fewer competitors, and no institutional sponsorship needed. Individuals could apply independently. The deadline was 11 days away. I dug out my original files, the ones I had created before it all became Derek's dream or the idea of partnership or whatever language he used in that atrium. The ones that were still and quiet were just mine. I didn't start over. I didn't need to. The foundation was already there, solid, just as I had always known it. I just picked it up again. I didn't tell anyone. Not Priya, not the friends who texted me to check on me, not my mother, who called twice. I would go to work early and stay up late and work as if I were trying to escape my doubts. Honestly, that's what I was doing. The Meridian Prize results were announced on a Tuesday morning, Central European time, which meant I was asleep when it happened. My phone woke me up, not an alarm, but a 4 a.m. jolt from my nightstand, and the notification was an unfamiliar name. Then another. Then 6 more in the same minute. I sat up in the darkness and squinted at the screen. Congratulations, Meyer Osai. First prize, Meridian International Design Competition. I read it 3 times. Then I put my phone down on the mattress and sat in silence for a full minute. It didn't feel like winning. It felt much older, like a door that had been closed for a long time had finally opened from the inside. By the time I got to the office that morning, the partners had already found out. Priya met me at the elevator with wide eyes and grabbed both of my hands. Maya, Maya. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. I looked at her and smiled, a genuine smile. What happened next wasn't slow. Competitions require written evidence. The Meridian Committee compared my submission to the Belmont submission, noted the structural similarities, and contacted the firm directly. The drive that Quaim pulled out had 14 months of metadata and version history. Derek's name wasn't anywhere in those files. My name was on every level. The firm's internal review took 9 days. I know because I counted the days. I kept coming. I kept doing my job. I didn't talk to Derek, and he didn't talk to me. Sometimes I'd see him at the end of the hallway and once by the coffee machine, and every time I saw him, it seemed like he was trying to remember how to stand normally, as if his own body had become unfamiliar to him. On the 9th day, managing partner Margaret Tello summoned me to the corner office and closed the door behind me. She told me that Derek Lane's partnership had been terminated with immediate effect. She said that the firm was deeply sorry. She said things like breach of trust, unforgivable, and your talent was never in question, and at the end her voice shook a little, which surprised me. I waited until she finished. "Thanks for letting me know," I said. She handed me a folder across the desk. I didn't have to open it to figure out what it was. A new contract, a new title, perhaps a number to indicate that they understood the importance of what had been done. I looked at it. I thought of the version of me who had come into this building 3 years ago, portfolio under my arm and chest pounding, desperate to be elected, desperate to be part of something that looked like legitimacy. I thought about how much I had wanted Derek's approval, how I had mistaken his attention for his faith in me, how long I had let someone else be my standard. I pushed the folder down on the desk. "I'm grateful," I said. "I really am, but I'm not signing that." Margaret's expression changed, not anger, but something familiar, as if she had expected it or perhaps understood it. I stood up. I straightened my jacket, and I thanked her again because I had meant it and because I no longer wanted to let bitterness take over my rightful place. The 30 seconds of the elevator ride down were the most silent moments of my life.